Extra. You did it. Hello, hello. There you are. Oh, I think you're on mute. Nope, hold on. I don't hear you. Shoot. Come on. Yeah. Maybe it's the headphones. It says you're on. Damn it. I have this, right? Unplug your headphones and see if I hear you then. No. Damn it. Yeah. Oh, I heard you.
Now?
Yes.
You're just gonna get the annoying you back, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, I don't.
Is that happening?
No.
Okay, fine. We're good.
Oh, because computer, right?
Well, I'm using my phone.
Oh, yeah. No, I actually don't hear myself.
That's fine. That's fine then. That's good.
It's a relief. I'm tired here hearing myself.
Yeah. Also, it would be like this terrible feedback loop that.
Yeah, I did. One of the very first ones I did was through a computer, but it was really hard to edit. Let's just say that it was. It makes me realize how much I guess talk in some of these that it made me learn to just back off.
It's about yeah, because you hear yourself. Yeah, I do that when we talk as well.
So instead of like I was not responding anymore. I was like,
you need to find a happy medium,
right? And I feel like it's not needed because you could see each other now, so I don't have to always acknowledge that I'm listening verbally.
Oh yeah, so it makes it easier to do the Zoom call,
just kind of
than just a regular phone call.
Right.
Regular phone calls are, I mean, they're both weird in today's age. You know
that people do them. Period.
Well, just like there's pressure on a phone call and there's pressure on a Zoom meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, there's less pressure, but like my girlfriend, she's a bit younger than me, and for her, she hates to talk on the phone ever. Like it gives her anxiety.
Oh.
But I remember like ordering pizzas, and you kind of had to call and say like, "I want this pizza." So Grubhub and shit like that was new.
Right.
So therefore, people don't remember where like you really couldn't totally avoid all human interaction. But now, like a phone call is a special event, or like, you know what I mean?
It's to a phone. I'm starting to actually get that way. I text so much, and it's more. I guess it is kind of what, passive aggressive, or where you can, because you're not on the spot. You can take your
Yeah.
time, but yeah, when you're on the phone
Well, we
now,
all know.
right? You
Everybody knows what
can't.
we're doing to each other. Like when it's like if you text somebody that you know, like if I text my bandmate or if I text anybody that I know is like a right hand person and they don't text you back in a couple hours, like you know they looked at it and we're just like, fuck this. I'm just
Yes.
not gonna answer this. Just like everybody does. And it's kind of funny because we give all of it, we like it's like the elephant in the room that we all say like no big deal. Like
Mhm.
let's just blow each other off and it's just kind of a thing that's accepted. But
Yeah.
blowing people off before was hard.
Yeah,
You
because
know
you
what I
would
mean?
just keep calling, you would leave messages,
Exactly.
and now
You know?
it's, I guess, yeah, if you really look at a conversation through text, it's like everyone's paused in our heads subconsciously, where
Yes.
if I say, "How are you?" and then 10 minutes later it's, "Hey, I'm good. How are you?" It's like this really
Yeah.
long phone conversation.
Also, like you could say "How are you?" in 8,000 different ways. You'd be like, "How are you? How are you? How are you, man? How you do?" You don't really know, or like is this a genuine "How are you?" or is it just like an icebreaker to the real text that the person wants to send you?
Yeah, because
You know what I mean?
you're,
Well, you never know that. That's like the funny part of because with talking, if someone calls you, you know from their demeanor, like on the phone at least a little bit, like what's going on. You gotta tell if somebody wants to talk to you about something important, or they're just
Mhm.
like, "Hey, I miss you, man. I want to talk to you." But
It's not the initial question, "How are you?" It's more like, "That's nice. Anyways,
yeah, yeah.
let me get to the real point."
What a long yeah.
Because some
Let's
people
go.
will genuinely give you an answer and you're
Yeah,
like, "Oh, okay."
exactly.
Yeah. So, Brandon, how are you?
Um, honestly,
Yes.
I've been better.
Good.
As has Earth. So, yeah,
Yeah.
not bad, not good, but it's a crazy time to be an artist of any kind. It's a very weird time to be a musician, and it's a really
Mhm.
hard time to be a musician who exists like kind of lower middle, like DIY, independent, got to do a lot yourself because this virus really changed the dynamic of what is available to everybody. So it's almost like you ever see that movie? It's like a new movie called Platform.
Mm-mm.
So the concept of the movie is like you have the people. There's basically like hundreds of levels, right? And on each level, there's people who live in this prison. And the top level, they get this gigantic feast, and then the people below them eat what's left over, and the people what's below them eat what's left over, and eat what's left over. And it keeps going until it gets to the bottom, and there's like nothing left but just banana peels and glass and broken stuff and all that. Right? That's the
Mhm.
bottom. I feel like the music industry is kind of set up that way, right? Where like the biggest bands are at the top for a while, and then bands below that take the smaller rooms, and then the opportunities that are lower, and then the opportunities that are lower. It goes like that, right? With the
Mhm.
opportunity spectrum, right? With this virus, it just cut off that entire thing, and now there's no levels of opportunities. There are just opportunities,
Mhm.
and then the biggest people are going to eat them, and there really isn't even much left to fight for as you go down. So it's like you cut that building in half and you have like half the food to feed all the people, because even when concerts start back up
Mhm.
and we have restrictions, let's say you could have only 1,000 people in a room, right? And then you could have 500 people, then you could have 200 people. Let's say like 1,000's the biggest. Every band who would have normally played to 5,000 people, they're going to take the 1,000. And
Mhm.
any band that would have played to 500 will take the 200. You know what I mean? Correspondingly down.
Mhm.
So that I feel like it's going to be kind of crazy as a band in the next like year or two, because I feel like people are going to be really fighting to make up for that time touring. And you're going to see bands maybe that will play smaller rooms than they would ever normally play.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason those rooms exist is for bands coming up to play. So I think it's going to be a really weird thing where it's like, whoa, like, you know, I can't believe I can go see so-and-so band that you usually see at a 2,000 person venue doing
like
a
an
500
arena
person.
and seeing them at like
a 500 person venue.
Right.
Because that's the legal limit. And they're like, okay, will you pay this much money a ticket? You know, people probably will pay, you know, $80 or whatever the ticket would be for that, you know. But what's really crazy, no news is going to talk about, obviously, because there's so much other stuff going on. And
right.
you know what we're going to hear is all of the bands, what they're really thinking. I feel like bands that are in my size or smaller are like, oh, fuck. Like, you already had to compete for holds for each place. But now you have people that are like, will instantly sell out all of these places and would never usually ever play there again. Now they're going to feel like take it. And it's going to be this crazy thing. And then I also wonder if you're going to see like mass droppings or not. Like, you know, if we don't get to do live shows for the next, I don't know how long it would take for the public to not care. But like, if it went on long enough, would you see like record labels be like, you know what? All your money is made on tours, and like, we're not going to ship, you know, this is too much bill for us.
Yeah.
And then kind of cut a lot of the people, you know, and it's not going to be big people, but it would be like kind of the bands coming up, you know? But,
and I feel like then on the flip side, as a concert goer, I'm fucked too, because I was even like, you know, like I can get on guest lists here and there. Even then I was like fighting for it just to get on to see Brick and Mortar. And now it's like, if Brick and Mortar are able to play, sure. But it's, you know, right now we got U2 playing at the Empty Bottle here. I'm trying to think where did I see you guys last? Subterranean? No.
That sounds like somewhere we would play.
Yeah. It's just, you know, small. But do you think that these online platforms have been going, a lot of bands have just been doing like quarantine sessions, or they're doing the shows, but I don't know if they're charging or not, but
well, like we did them for a while, and like it's cool. It's just like a big undertaking if you don't have like a crew of people, because you have to do everything yourself all the time, and like quality control is hard because you never know, if the internet starts to freeze and all of a sudden your stream is freezing, and you know, if you have the money to have like a sound guy and do all this stuff. But when we started doing it, it was just like throw together Logic and just do something, because nobody was even meeting each other at that time. It was like me and John were getting together, but like it was when everybody was like locked down.
Yeah.
And you do make money from donations, and you do make good money from Twitch, you know, but that's not really like the same kind of ticketing thing where it's like pay money to see it. It's more like go there and see it. And then if you want to give some money, you know, do some subs on Twitch, which you get money for every monthly subscription. So bands kind of just went on Twitch as if they were streamers. And then every one of those subs is like a donation.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
So it's kind of like a listen, but it's...
Well, it's kind of like you could watch it, and I feel like bands end up making more money if they do that and people just give them money than they do if they were like, hey, it's $20 to watch our live stream.
Yeah.
Because I feel like less people are willing to be like, oh, I'm going to pay a ticket to watch this live stream. And then also the live stream has to be like amazingly produced, which you might not be able to do. And that's why you see a lot of bands doing stripped down things, or like somewhere in between. And then once in a while you see them do a full band kind of thing. But it's rare that you see them actually charge money for tickets. Like you see some, right? But that's only really the biggest ones that are like,
because they have people who know how to do all that kind of e-commerce.
Not only that, but they're much bigger as far as like they can tell their audience, you have to pay me money,
and they will,
and that some will,
right?
And they don't care about the rest. that
Because it's a
won't,
big sum.
because a big sum.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're an independent artist or a smaller artist, like you kind of have to, one, you really appreciate your fans, and then being your fans, because you realize like you need them to thrive,
Mm-hmm.
and two, like you're not gonna, I guess, push your luck and be like, all right, everybody, it's like normally coming to see us is $15, but we want you to pay 10 to watch us on your phone. Like it seems a little bit harder of a sell, and honestly, I feel like a smaller band would actually always make more money on the donations than they would on because all their fans love them. So it's like, they'll hit them up and tip them on Venmo or however they set it up, however they're going to take the donation or PayPal or whatever. But I feel like that model works when you're smaller, for sure.
Because it's because you're it's kind of open amount of donation versus a bet of kind of smaller contributions to whatever you're trying to show.
Yes, exactly. And also it's like, think about it this way. When you think about why you listen to the music that you listen to, like there's some music that you listen to, and the reason that you may listen to it may be because it's just such a catchy song and it's been in your face so many times, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you really love the song because it's really well done and all these things. Then you start learning about the band, but from the perspective that you learned about the band from, they were already important and this bigger thing, and then you learned about the guitarist or the singer or whoever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's your perspective. You don't probably feel any responsibility to donate any money to those people. But if you find a band who you feel like you discovered, and then you're watching them, and then they have a live stream, and you look at who's in there, and there's like a couple hundred people in there, and they're taking donations, I feel like your connection with that is more maybe in a different way than with something that's like that you still like but it's huge, because that help you're giving them makes an impact when you're like, okay, I'll donate $10 to you. Like, I feel like it's different. I feel like music and art and stuff, it all has to do with your perception of the personality of who you're listening to. And the smaller a band is, the easier it is to see their actual personality, because they don't have a team of fakery that could there's not a person like, if you see a video of them online, there's a big chance that they edited that video themselves, of themselves. If it's like a YouTube, like if it's like a quick thing on Instagram, chances are they didn't get a photographer. And if it was a photographer that it's just different. It's not like the same thing where every day they look superhuman, or every day they're able to appear jovial or exciting. You see that, oh man, their day's kind of boring too. But then when you see more successful bands, you're like, seems like they're always doing something rad. How?
Right.
It's like, well, that's because the person's
it's less believable. I feel like this could be a good chance for those bands that you put up in icon status to show the simplicity. That's I would like to see.
I think what you are seeing is the smoke and mirrors of how much you actually, because you watch, especially when pandemic first hit, before anyone had any time. Now things are a lot more bougie as far as what it looks like online. But when you first started seeing bands do online shit, or you watched any of those COVID benefit shows, and you're like, this person's playing the background from their laptop and singing into an iPhone mic. They're not even this is insane. And then you realize, wait a minute, this artist actually has no idea how any of that stuff works. And some other person usually is in charge of doing all of that. You know what I mean? And then you hear Green Day play, and it sounds similar to the quality of anybody who just put up a podcast mic and did it. And that's kind of endearing because, you listen to Billy Joe Armstrong play and it sounds great because he's a good player and he's doing a great job. But then you listen to maybe somebody else who is coveted as being an amazing thing, and then you
Mm-hmm.
see them do their thing, and you're like, that doesn't have the same impact as when the whole show is happening,
Right.
or like everything is mixed perfectly and this perfectly and that, because there is a difference, and there was really no way to ever see that. And it showed that artists are humans and they're not perfect. And oh wow, like this person who's an amazing singer, they're singing, but not that they're out of pitch, but they're not as beyond perfect. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're a kid at home watching that, I think that's good, because you're like, oh wait, like you can be amazing and still like a human. Whereas I feel like when you're hearing like any radio, or when you're looking at videos people put out, even when they put out like behind the scenes videos, like they're very cultivated.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody does that. And it kind of gives you the sense that like, well, how could you ever do what they're doing? Like they're so amazing. But I feel like that's because they're like cutting out all of the things that sometimes humanize them, which I know it has a good effect. But I feel like what's funny about COVID is like nobody could do that, because when you live stream, you can't. So if you're live
Mm-hmm.
streaming and the mic is cutting out, or your internet's freezing, and now like you're getting aggravated, and people could see that you're getting aggravated on the stream, and like you're losing your cool, where as you seemed like like you don't have that. It's very funny, because I just really liked it, because I'm a poor guy, so I like to see when the big show gets thrown into the blender, how it how it reacts. And it's kind of cool, because like there are some people that you're like, wow, you know what, this group or whatever, like doesn't matter what they do, like they're gonna be great.
Do you feel, and I was going to say compliment to you, and you're talking about production and shows, knowing that it's, really what, three of you guys putting on that show?
Yeah.
And so I know you guys as that. And so was it hard then to have your audience not see the surprise in a virtual world for you guys?
I guess so, but like I got kind of into like the whole trying to green screen and kind of cultivate a background of
Okay.
cartoonish stuff, and
You
we kind of did
learned
that.
on your own.
I learned on my own that way. So every week I was editing, and then it was an experiment every week, and then trying to make the sound better and all that stuff, to be like qualifying, which is like, there's so much that goes into that, because then you have like the whole like actual streaming aspect, and how whatever you do is just going to be turned into garbage when it is streamed onto Instagram Live. And then the stupid technical part where you're like, well, how can I stream to Twitch and Instagram, and then you can't, you have to choose, and all these things that are like, because in our world today, everything is so connected that you feel like, hey bro, like why wouldn't you just stream to YouTube and Twitch and Instagram at the same time? It's like, oh well bro, I don't have like 2 computers or 3 computers, like things that
and my Wi-Fi doesn't have the capability.
Yes, I can't do that. I can't send out 2 signals, and then like all of a sudden now I'm talking about like resending my signal through this website. All these things that I did learn from that. And I think ultimately, I don't think you're going to be able to be a musician in the future without live streaming to an extent, even if it's personality, because I think songs are great, right? You could write a great song and it means something to you and all that stuff, and the music is important, but I do feel like personality of who wrote it, or the personality of who the people are, is so much more important today than it ever was before. And a song has to be good enough. So you can't start with something that's not good. It has to be.
That's step one.
That's step one, right? But then I feel like I don't think you're gonna any longer be able to be like so private, except for like a few exceptions where it's marketed as such. You know what I mean? I feel like you kind of have to do that. And also, it's kind of like it's not like it was where you're allowed to just, like I became an artist because I want to make music at my own pace. I want to do shit at my own pace. I don't want to fucking listen to anybody. I don't want to be in a corporate machine. I don't want to do what a fucking McDonald's commercial wants me to do. I don't even want those companies to like me. I want them to be mad at me. That was the point when I was growing up. But now it's not. The point is to actually assimilate and all this stuff. So it's like, I feel like people before gave you time to be like, okay, you want to make one album and then not make an album for 2 years. So you make sure like everything you put out is amazing. If that's what you want to do, awesome. I'm going to be your fan and I'm going to buy your stuff and I'm going to be excited about 2 years from now when you make an album.
Yeah.
But now
I'm going to see other people, but I'm coming back to you.
But I'm coming back. And that's fine. You're like, dude, that's fine. I never wanted to be monogamous anyway. I want you to have sex with everyone.
Right.
Go do it. That was the point of being in a band, right? That now it's like you put something out. People eat it. This is good. What else do you have? So you're not really able to like, so you have two options. Pump out song after song after song after song, which some people can do that. And that's fine. Other people, you're like, well, I really want to like, I want to make sure I'm not just putting out the same thing 5 times. And 2, I want to really love what I do. And 3, like, I want to enjoy the experience of being an artist. That's why I chose to do it. Like, I actually didn't want to be part of the rat race. And now I feel like I'm rat racing more than all the rats I saw in the race before. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like, but I'm also old. I was like born in a time where I feel like we were marketed to be, like, you know, I'm 35. So I feel like every millennial, which I'm like at the cusp of, like every millennial my age, like looked up to the Gen X mindset of like, the whole point is to not and have people appreciate you for who you are. And the you know, whole science of self, be the individual thing, which, you know, is also marketing to myself. It was also marketed to me when I think about it now, right? That whole idea. But at the same time, getting back to what I was saying and not going on a high fucking trail, but what I was saying was this. Because of the fact that now when you put something out, people consume it and they love it and they respect you for it, but to get ahead, it's not like once you put a song out, 3 weeks goes by and no one's going to review it. No one's going to do any of those other things for what you put out, most likely, unless you have like serious pull, because it's old now, because the cycle of what is new and old, new used to be like a song comes out and it's new for what, like 3 months? Like
that's
back in the day. Back in the day. Like, because you didn't instantaneously go on Spotify and hear it. You had to go to Jacob's house and he had a CD and you know what I mean?
In between you could hear it maybe on the radio, maybe once or twice. Yeah.
Once or twice. Like, but that made new last longer. So now what I'm saying is artists have a choice. Just like the guy, the CEO of Spotify was saying, you can no longer make an album every 2 or 3 years. You have to put stuff out all the time. That's just the paradigm. So artists have a choice. You can either put stuff out all the time, which is like literally have a single out a month, you know what I mean? And just pump stuff out. Or you could try to put out the most amount you're comfortable with. So you're productive and you're still in the public eye. And then you could do stuff to subsidize that. What can you do to subsidize that? Play video games on Twitch. Do stuff live streaming. You can perform your own songs, but that's going to get old because people don't want to just hear you on live stream, especially. Like, they're not going to return every single week the same amount of people to watch your live stream. It's like, it's a thing you do, but if you don't have a giant pool of people, you can burn out your audience on that. You'll still always have your hardcore people, but it's like, I feel like artists are going to be forced to be personalities in the sense where it's like, okay, well, I don't want to do 23 songs in 2 years. You know what I mean? I kind of want to take my time. So I have to keep everybody excited about it. And there's only so many options. Like, you could have a video guy come and record what you do every day and edit it together and all that shit. But that's also like a lot of work to do that.
And
or
money that you don't know if you're going to get back.
Yes, money that you don't have to get back, because people won't just always do you a favor and like come over and film your shit. Right. So I feel like you're going to see more and more bands live streaming as people, as personalities, like Ronnie Radke style, and like all those like metal guys who are on Twitch, and like, you know, and that's going to be kind of a thing. And it's just funny because it's like kind of a grind, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
in a certain sense, it's not, I'm not sure what kind of person like wants to go into music today and why except they want us all kinds of for different reasons, but like the bohemian reason where like you want to make music so you don't have to do other shit. Like that's great if you're successful, but if you're not really successful, I feel like you got to grind more than you usually would back in the day, you know, back
And
when you get like a juicy fruit commercial and then like that was it for like you're good for like 3 years, you know
right.
what I mean?
I was saying I could see it also being I forgot who I was talking with, but it was an artist talking about the way we write is also an issue where you look at probably, like you said, the millennials and then backwards, you got better people, better lyrics and better workings. It's kind of what going to connect to like our talk on the texting, for example. You felt that people were able to our favorite like influences or people that we admire, they wrote lyrics on paper. They had time to put all that together. It's like they journaled basically, and it took a physical pen and paper, and so you have this amazing like work. Now we're in this era of digital typing, and so there's less time to sit and write something because you're not really writing, so there's less substance, it feels like. So one person might get just one really good poetic song and that's it, like current up and comers, whereas you have these other bands that have decades of life that they have written about, that they can go back to journals and just kind of put all that together, or people who even write books, you know, that's how they put all their little notes together. They put their journals together. And I feel that's also kind of a hard thing to grasp. Either people are going to do, I just want to do this one thing and this one thing only, or because they have success with it, they're kind of, this is not a good time, it feels like, to be that person who might want to actually be a musician because they have something to say. But
I think you could be a musician,
mm-hmm.
but here's the thing, it's like you can be a musician, but it's like, what does that mean? Like, you can be a great musician and show everybody you're an amazing guitar player and then exist in that like Volpec universe where you're like an internet persona even
Mm-hmm.
as a player, and you do tour in your live band, but all your fans are coming and they all play guitar too, because
Right.
you're literally a musician known as that. But I know when you said musician, you meant more of like a recording artist, like
Yes.
a person who makes songs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing, though. What used to make you hate a band or artist when you were growing up? Not what made you like it, because no one's allowed to be a hater today. We have to like everything.
What made me? I would have to say sometimes, I don't know. Like I would say maybe their style or something, or like the gimmick maybe kind of made me like, eh.
Would you like it if a band was like, had an amazing song and then at the end of it, there was like a gigantic Nike swoosh at the end of the music video?
Would I like that? No.
No. Okay.
So the
Exactly.
sellout, yeah, the
But guess
whole,
what? That's not a thing anymore. So
yeah.
fucking you getting the Nike swoosh at the end of your video is actually very cool, because musicians have become capitalists, and the majority of the attitude is kind of like corporate sponsorships and all those things are like sought after because no one makes money streaming. So you
Mm-hmm.
got to subsidize it one way. So you're like, okay, I'm not going to be a slave to the label. So I'm going to do these brand partnerships and all this stuff. And it's really funny though, because that is actually what made you not like bands before, because you didn't want them to be at what? Sellout. A what?
Sellout.
Not a real artist, just a person writing singles for the sake of singles. But it's like right now you have music that's being written, and it's like, not that it's bad music, but okay, a song is popular. Is it popular because people really like it, or is it popular because it has frappe in the lyric, and 8.2 million people did a social video with the song drinking a frappe because that was actually gave them a dopamine rush of getting some internet points on their personal platform for interacting. And that's not wrong or bad. It's just a choice for every artist and a choice for every person, right? But it's funny because it has become cool to be a corporate shill or attached to things like that. Whereas before, it was would literally like kill your band, but not in plays, probably just in perception. Like you'd still make a bunch of money if you're already successful. But when we were growing up, and it's just very funny if you think about that, right? Like people don't tell you what they do not like anymore. People go, oh, I like that, I like this, I like that, I like this. Like, well, if you're just like, you know what? I think that kind of sucks. I don't like that's not for me. You could still say that and not be like, it doesn't mean it's bad. It means it's not for me. In my head, it sucks. I would never do it. It's not something I would like to do. That doesn't mean that it's bad. But you're not even allowed to be that way anymore, because being cynical and not being positive does not push you on the internet algorithm. So, like, could you imagine, like, unless you're doing a character that is, like, purposely angry, you know? But could you imagine, like, the cynicism of, like, the reality bites culture on the internet? Because it doesn't really work, because people want to see positivity and they want to see, like, you know, and it's weird because it's not really about the band or the person. Like, you all have your own TV show, and that is your Instagram, and that is your social media. So, like, all of those things that you used to covet take a kind of a backseat to that. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and you're right. You almost don't want to confuse people, because people, you're right. Everyone wants to say, what do you like? What do you listen to? What do you, and you're always going to say that, but you're not going to interrupt yourself and then go, but can I just say, I really do not like blank, because
you find a video of a band being interviewed and you going, do you like this? And just find one where they say they don't. Who rocks the boat? Who says their record label sucks? Who is like, hey, guess what? My label, they ripped me off and they suck.
They say it afterwards.
Did a terrible job.
It's always after that you find out these, like,
even after, though, rack your brain for a second.
Mm-hmm.
In the past 10 years, I'm not talking about Prince on the fucking stage telling everybody he's a fucking slave to the label and changing the name and shit, or any of the like, you could, I bet you the times that you're gonna pick out are gonna be ones that we both know, because they're actually that rare.
Right.
Because you're probably so bound by the contract that you can't really start going out there and, like, talking about the smack. But back in the day, people did, because record labels needed to have the golden artist that had the great song, because it was all about having the biggest hit and being on the radio. Now, if you start acting up as an artist, they're like, I'm going to pop somebody into my algorithm, and I'm not going to deal with you anymore. Like, unless you were already so massive, I don't think artists have the power that they used to have in a certain way. But now they have power in a different way, where it's better than ever to start being an artist and become, like, a medium of the road artist or a small artist, because you can. But, like, I don't think you have power as a bigger artist. Like, if big artists had power, why in the fuck wouldn't they just put all their own shit out and collect the money? Like, that's why, you know, it's world rockin' news that Drake's talking about having his own label. Like, why? He's been huge for forever.
Right.
So it's like, Well, it's because I bet you on the power structure of all that stuff, it's probably, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that, that's behind the scenes that,
Oh, what was that?
sorry,
Was that your
my
screensaver?
power. No, that was my power. I don't know
Oh,
what popped up, but yeah, like there's a lot of stuff that I feel like probably goes into that behind the scenes that you're not allowed to see, just like how people get signed NDAs and shit like that. Like when you get dropped from a label, you can't always say everything that happened and all that stuff. And also,
yeah.
like there is some kind of stigma attached to all that stuff in some way. But either way, it's like it's very interesting because we live in a society where like you have to be overly positive, like even though we're not really, like we're all cynical people, but on the internet you feel like you're only going to be negative about the things that you know exist in your echo chamber that everybody also dislikes, you know?
Yeah. And you're only going to get, unless again, like you said, you have a character or that's what you're known for.
Yeah, like if
The
you're Oliver
constant.
Tree, yeah, because Oliver Tree is like a great example of somebody who is like chose to be a character because he tried to make it in music. He tried to do music seriously, and it was like he was hitting walls. And then he started to realize, oh, I can do this thing where like I perform as this kind of character, and you know, it really worked with today's world. But also think about this: he wanted to be a musician who just did what he wanted, and people listen to his songs, and like, and I'm happy he did. I'm happy it didn't work, and he did do Oliver Tree because I really like that he did that. I really like his persona. I think it's very smart. Just for somebody who makes like a lot of video stuff myself and like does a lot of work, I can appreciate how much work goes into that, because I don't think some people realize like how much work is going into that particular person's stuff. But it's also kind of sad that like that was a reaction to it being that hard. That even though he made just as good of songs, right? If you listen to his old stuff and everything, he couldn't get what he needed to have exposure, you know? And that's what it brings you back to. You're going to see a lot more bands that are personalities on TikTok, and the bigger your personality, the more successful you'll be, because let's face it, if you have fucking 10 million subscribers and you put out a song, like you're going to outdo me, Brick and Mortar, fucking 10 times over, even if it was called the Baby Bottle, Baby Tibby, Baby Rubber Baby Bumper song. Like it's going to outdo, it doesn't matter because you have that much of a pool of people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, I feel like personality is going to sell music so much that it's going to be like kind of a, you know, you're going to see so many artists kind of develop some way of staying current without putting out a song a week, because nobody can keep up quality.
No, and the trend that I've noticed over the past year, even prior to COVID, because I think when I was, so to piggyback on this idea on our end as a station, we have found that I've been doing this show for about 2.5 years, but it was a more of a passion project. I took it on after we actually we had an artist who was in a band in the 90s, and then she just kind of went up and down in the music industry, and got back in the music. But she used it as her own vessel to talk about what she actually did both. She actually did like, here's what I'm liking, what I'm not liking. Here's what I was a fan of this. So then I took that on, and running a station, I was learning to not be that business person, to just do, like, our whole concept of the station was not to just do what everybody else is doing. It was people like me that kind of like want to know about the songs. Like every single song we play has been listened to, has been approved to be on. It's not because Billboard told us or a label told us. So that was kind of what we were doing. And then I started interviewing bands to give them that platform to say what their songs are about, or go into kind of like a storyteller, like that VH1 storyteller idea. But now, so I'll actually say at the end of last year, kind of, I won't say plateau, but it seemed to be on a regular scheduled basis where we just knew, I never have set questions. I just go in, you talk, the end. And I would always end with where you're going to be, concerts. We always do follow-ups. And I had all these follow-ups already scheduled from bands in 2019. And I wanted to follow up to say, hey, last year you said this, what, but there was like a needle on the record and
Radio silence.
But I thought since there was no shows, there's nothing to talk about, and things were in this weird internet world where that's where everything was now being placed, quarantine sessions, etc. All the dates for all the albums were pushed to the fall. I didn't know what I can do. And so labels would always have, I mean, they would be week by week. I'd get this person, this person, this person, and nothing was happening. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to I'll do it on my own. I'll just take a song and I'll just do my spiel. I don't remember who or what, but I got an artist that was his name. The name of the album was All for Nada, which I thought symbolically, because it came out on March 15th. I thought it was about I did all this work and now it's for nothing.
Yeah.
So it was actually, that was the name of his girlfriend, Nada, who pushed him to do it. But it was like, but that's what I mean. There was this great story. And then I started realizing, like, and you're an example, like you have things to say, and this is very raw and rare that you wouldn't typically get. Right now, we spent 40, 50 minutes talking just about this, where a year ago, most likely when we had talked originally, when I met you at your show, I remember even talking to you like, hey, what do you got going on? Blah, blah, blah. You gave me your number and everything. And it was going to be about what was coming up for music.
Well, I don't think that for me that makes sense anymore to be like, oh, well, what's coming up with music, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, everybody who listens to me knows I make music. And I know I put out music. And I know there's going to be new music. And, like, I could do the whole thing where I'm like, hey, make sure that you listen to my blah, blah, blah. But it's like, hey, if you're not looking at my social media, you're really not. Like, how many times did I post, like, hey, listen to my new song, American Reality, new music video. Go to the thing, American Reality, American Reality, American Reality, American Reality.
Yeah, like, how many streams you got? I saw that posted a couple times.
Like, you're doing these things because, you know, one, I'm doing them because I want to reward the fans that listen to it. Because I'm like, listen, I'm not stupid. I know that, like, I'm lucky to be getting the streams I have. Do I feel that way when I'm fucking loading in another band at some fucking drive-in concert series? No.
Right.
But it reminds me that I am lucky. You know what I mean? Because unfortunately, you need so much to get greater. You know what I mean? But at the same time, like, why on interviews and stuff should I even not be myself? Because what I'm realizing is, like, you might as well be yourself, and people are going to either listen to your music or they're not going to listen to your music, but at least you'll have fun talking and you'll enjoy yourself, because the whole universe of, like, playing it safe where you're like, listen, this is what I have coming on, this is what I have coming out. Like, I feel like that was something that I kind of felt like, because originally when I first started making music, this is how I was all the time, like, all the time. And then I was told I was, like, too strong of a personality and all this shit and blah, 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 blah. And you have to be nicer and don't make jokes and don't do this and don't do that. Pretty much, like, by labels that I had and all this stuff. And I was like, well, maybe if I want to follow my dream, I should, like, you know, watch myself. Like, maybe I'm a cocky person. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? Because you want to think it's yourself. You want to think, like, I don't know everything in the world, right? Obviously. Right. So you think about that, but then you realize, like, fucking, okay, they're just following a formula that, like, all of their bands that are, like, pretty much in a, do I write song, like, getting off the point, but do I write songs that are kind of poppy and could exist in, like, a radio universe? I guess so. But I am not, I'm not a fucking 23-year-old Caucasian male who's 6 feet tall with 5 other band members, and we all wear leather jackets and look really cool. Like, that's never someone who I would be, which, you know, I'm not trying to be racing into it, but, like, that is the archetypical thing that a label wants to sign who specializes in alt. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Like,
they put you in when they, and that's what I, connecting with the station was when you hear that alt kind of word you put into a genre, and that like it's the genre, but it's supposed to be undefined, and people defined it. And what you just said with that 6 foot, 4-piece band that all has different hair and whatever, they look natural.
Yeah.
That's what it was. But when we started putting this station together, it was this idea. Originally, it was supposed to be alt, like a 180, because we were doing like no one was putting all the decades together like well. So like you would go to a station, or they would just have the 80s hour, but then we're like, wait, no, there's all these subgenres that aren't being really identified as what it really all it is, because it's singer songwriters, it's industrial, it's pop, even. So it's like when we put the station together, that the way, if going into the 90s or even in the 2000s, when the network of what we're part of this network with Nexus network, that idea of creating a station that puts all that together would never happen in like the real world, because people think alternative, they think this. But we were doing where we can play a brick and mortar next to like an R&B indie artist or something like that, and it just sounds fine. But it also
That's because people at home do that all the fucking time.
right. That's exactly right.
It's like why are, first of all, like let's really think, like if we're really getting into it. And this is why I think it's like funny, because like, all right, I've been through the gauntlet. I've been signed, I've been dropped, stayed alive, all this shit. Like, some people will give me pats on the back and they're like, I'm you have so much potential. I'm so glad that you didn't quit. I would have quit. Like, that's like half
Right.
that's half the thing I get sometimes. But what's interesting is like you start to see certain things, and then when you first see them, you go, "Oh, am I just being like a dick about what I'm thinking, or is there a pattern here?" And you're like, "Oh, wait a minute. So it's the year 2015 at the time, or whatever, or 2016 or something." And I'm like, how come every single piece of the music business is compartmentalized for the most part? There are outlanders. But why is every single piece of the music industry compartmentalized into genre, which is essentially compartmentalized into race in a less direct way? So it's like, okay, if you're a booking agent, you exclusively book rock and roll bands and pop punk bands and anything that fits into like the rock and roll newer thing. Like if you're a white guy with a guitar, or a guy of color who also plays the guitar but not that bluesy, more rock and rolly, and you like to wear like punk rock type shit, how come that universe, like how come most booking agents do like all one genre, and then they do and like same thing with PR companies. It's like, okay, look at like one of the ones that you see it do like a smaller pop punk band. Like you see that PR company, my guess is going to be that most of their bands are going to be the same genre. So it's kind of funny because like this indirect thing where it segregates people. Yeah. Because it's not like they're trying to do it, but it's like, I get why they do that. Booking agent books all pop punk bands and all rock bands. You know why? Because that's the bands he knew when he first started booking, and there's no booking agent school. So obviously your pool of bands is from a scene, and that's how you become a bigger booking agent. And it's very rare that that agent will go to a bigger company and then like switch it up and be like, let me get a hip hop guy, or I'm going to book a jazz guy now. Like very rare, because that human being would have to be into that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He'd have to be into jazz now. He'd have to be into hip hop enough where he'd want to book that thing. So why in this future where no one gives a shit if you listen, like you can listen to The Weeknd, Morbid Angel, Johnny Cash, Triple X rapper, Brick and Mortar, 5 Seconds of Summer, The Doors. Like that could be a playlist that you personally listen to, and it wouldn't bother you because that's allowed. But everything in music is so separated by like, oh, hi, I do this specific thing and I work with these kind of bands.
Mm-hmm.
Even with recording, it's like there are people who record all kinds of bands, but a majority of the bands that record is like this kind of band. And that's because the whole thing is kind of separated, because this manager manages, you know, all these kind of alt indie bands, and that's who's funneling bands to this person who records. And it's very funny because the music business is not very like modernized in that way, where it's like, you know, and it's like, if you're a band and you come out and you fit a sound, they could throw you into this or throw you into that and see if it works well.
Mm-hmm.
But if you come out and do something different, it's like, oh, well, like, where do we put you as a band? And that makes sense why that's hard, because everything is based off of scenes and everything is based off of, like, you know, people who specialize in this and that. And you don't really think about that when you think about music. Like, you kind of think that the music industry changes with the times. But it's like, the music industry is like a 1992, like, if you're an 8th grader in 92 and someone's like, what are you? Are you hip hop? Are you rock and roll?
Mm-hmm.
Are you freestyle dance? What are you? Like, that is the, you know what I mean? That's
Right.
the record industry. Like, it's not, there's a reason why when you look at a record label, if we're not talking about Sony or Universal or whatever, it's like, why would a guy who started a record label, who put out indie rock, you know, for 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
20 years after that, do 20 more years of the same kind of bands? There's got to be a reason why that's what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's and it's all about connections too. You know, once you're in it, you're in it.
And I don't think there's an overall like evil arc to it. I just think it's kind of how it settled, and it's really, really funny because in a byproduct of that is you're rewarded for conformity.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, you know, you can go from 0 to 60 being something that fits in, but then it's going to be hard to go and break that ceiling.
Right.
It's like you become the biggest hardcore band of the East Coast, and then it's like to get past that and then be a worldwide thing is like, that's where the trouble starts.
Mm-hmm.
For you know, if someone wants to get beyond what they've achieved. But it's very funny because it's like, it's almost like the atmosphere that we're in really punishes you for not fitting in, you know, unless you're doing it visually. And then that really works, is what leads me to say that, like, people who don't fit in are going to do a lot more streaming because people will appreciate that. Like, and you could develop a cult of personality with those people.
You now centered in on your focus is on one person. That one person is going to kind of do the work for you, rather than if you're doing that more in person, you might get those in the audience just not.
Also, let's be honest, like, if you develop a following of people who are actually watching what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter. I don't give a shit. I would bet that you could deliver a song that was very lackluster to a label, and if you had enough clout, like, if people knew that every time you went on to do a Twitch stream or do this or do that, you know, you had, you know, 20,000 people showing up to watch you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're not gonna all of a sudden, all the walls that you saw before, they're not there. Everyone's like, oh, let's do that idea you want. What, that idea you had? Let's do that idea. That's a great idea.
Right.
But it's like, so really, you know, that's a chance to get power and do it that way. And it's like kind of funny though, but it just makes me laugh when you talk about, like, you know, the programming thing. Cause
Mm-hmm.
it's like, you know, why is it that way? Like, why is it that, you know, you're tuning in to hear this or just that or just this? And it's like kind of funny because that's definitely set up that way because it's just so much easier to organize that.
And we've learned in the past 6 months, probably, no, I would say maybe even the whole year, kind of collecting, where 80% of what we play is that mix. But when we boast as all degrees of alternative, because we do that like 360 wheel,
Yeah.
is, yeah, some of us, and I'm just as guilty, is yeah, there's sometimes I
Yeah, but we're
just want to
talking about
hear. Well, I'm saying like
yeah,
programming, just like you have. I like to put those in once in a while, but not make it what I kind of almost embrace the cliche. Like we actually stole, well, not stole, it was just there. It was this back in the, I guess, 80s. It was like a competing, when MTV was doing their thing, they had to make a I guess a broad typical channel, CBS, NBC kind of
oh, they tried
local
it.
music video programming. It was called Power Play, and it was this really cheesy, like what you would hear them play in office buildings, like, hey, we got the hits and blah blah blah, and we got the videos for this, and here's the latest from that. And I we play the charted songs, but it's not like that's what we're boasting, like we're playing the best in. So when we do that show, which is actually all automated, and we purposely make it out to be this like cheesy, almost make you feel guilty that you like all this like
Yeah,
top 20, but it's there if you want to only hear what's charting. Tune in from this time. If you like
and that's
only
and that's
this,
totally and that's totally fine, and that's totally like an acceptable thing. I just think it's funny that like the entire music industry, for the most part, from booking agents to PR people to everything you can think of to record labels, is all very segregated in the same way, which like for a
mm-hmm.
radio station, it makes sense. You guys are like literally marketing, like, come here to hear what you want. Like,
Yeah,
that's the purpose. That makes sense to me. But it was just funny to open it up, because when you're thinking about the business, you're like, why does a record label need to create a hip hop subdivision to their regular label?
mm-hmm.
Seems like
Just
they could
put it.
just,
Do you feel because I actually I hear that a lot with, I guess that's why indie has now become like the new alternative, where you can have,
because
you don't,
alternative is like pop.
right. So indie's now
You
with
know?
this, any anything, like even on this show, like I said, I would play. It's not like I'm playing. Here's a brick and mortar tune, but now we're going to go to the R&B side of things and
Yeah.
play Leon Bridges. It's just all there. To your point of like labels should be doing that too, where it's just like, boom, we're this label
Yeah.
of
And
whatever.
only the most massive labels do that.
Right.
Because if you're a big enough artist and all of a sudden it's like Universal Records, you could be anything. Like Sony Records, you could be anything. RCA, you could be anything. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But all of the indie labels and all of the imprint labels, they kind of exist off of this, like, you know, they kind of go into a lane where, like, you know, it's kind of like,
And
you
I,
know, like the meetings I've had with different indie labels,
mm-hmm.
you know, it's always been, you know, guy calls me on the phone and he's like, I'm very interested in to hear what your plans are and all this stuff. And you're like, well, my plan is to make some music, and then it comes out and then I get further than I did prior.
Right. And
It's
hopefully
like,
people listen to it. And
you're like, I'm talking to you because, believe it or not, I'm supposed to sign a contract and then you're supposed to give me a plan.
right. So that's
That's
your plan. Let's make that happen.
apparently your plan is for me to sign a contract and then give you a plan. It's like you got a job to then be the boss of your own boss and do all the work for your boss. Like that's kind of the funny thing about labels now, is like they'll have this conversation with you where they're like, they'll say, okay, what's your plan? And then you say the plan. So let's get past that part. Yeah, my plan is I'm going to do a music video, a lyric video, and this and that. And they're like, oh, that's great. Like, okay, we'll give you like not enough money to do all that. You want to do that still? No, I can't. It's not enough money, so I can't do all those things. I could do a
Mm-hmm.
lower version of that, blah, blah, blah. You get past that. They start listening to all the music, and they're like, oh, you know, I really like the songs. They're very catchy and great, and I connect with them so much, but our label just like, it just doesn't fit. I don't know where to put you. I don't know what to put you in. I don't know.
It's like you're at
where you go.
at that table. You come to a new school, and
Yeah.
you have your tray of your stuff, and you have to sit at the jock table, or do we put you at the geek table, or do we don't know where to put you.
I think it's actually more dark than that.
Oh.
I don't think it's as nice as being at a school table, because that would mean that you're all on some certain level where you all get public amenities. Like if you're at school, you all get to have some milk because you could be on the free lunch program.
There you go.
You know?
So maybe on your
Like,
tray, there's just whatever mom got you.
Yeah. But this would be more like you're an orphan out there in the world, and you're floating. You're at the orphanage, and a label comes to talk to you, and they're like, listen, you're like a great kid. You're full of personality. It's really great. I don't know what kind of family you particularly would fit in. And then, like, the first time that happens to you, first of all, when you're young, they're just like, oh, I'll put you with this family. And then, like, as you, not, I don't mean young in age, I mean young in what the band has done. Because in the beginning, I feel like there's a thing where people will sign you and put you somewhere and try you out. But as you get older, you start to feel like the kid at the orphanage who never got adopted. And families come to see you, and they're like, Brandon, we really, we love talking to you. Honestly, we've come here every Sunday for the past 4 months. We love talking to you. But you know what? Like, I just don't see you, like, I don't think, like, your style goes well with, like, our neighborhood or our house. So, like, we'll always, like, you can always talk to us. We'll come visit once in a while and check in on you. Just in case you became, like, I don't know, far more attractive as a little kid.
If you cut your hair, maybe.
Yeah, if you become a very desirable little boy, we'll probably adopt you. But if not, let's keep the communication channels open. And those are the kind of conversations you have with record labels. So you start to kind of have this kind of funny feeling where now we have a phone call, you're kind of like, you're like, cool, like, what do you want to talk about? And try to be positive and talk to them and stuff. But at the same time, you're like, I get it. Like, this isn't my first time. Like, you could tell me, like, just tell me if you want to do anything with me or not. Because if not, like, I'm going to go make pancakes. Because honestly, I'm really thrilled that you're from so-and-so label and you're talking to me right now. But at the same time, like, I don't give a fuck, because I've just been put, like, once you go through the ringer of it all, you just start to be like, oh, well, what does it matter? Like, as long as you're making music and you're productive and you feel inspired to do what you're doing, like, all the other stuff with, like, playing the game and this and that, like, I mean, you just have to assess all that, I feel like, as it comes. But it's very funny once you get seasoned to, like, disappointment or just the whole, like, someone talks to you and you think something's going to happen and it doesn't happen, and then this and that. It's like, you just kind of go, like, I'm not even going to worry about that shit anymore. I'm just going to worry about putting stuff out, promoting it the best I can. And if something comes along, because so often I feel like young artists are like, I have to figure out a plan. And, like, the plan's right there. It's just keep putting shit out.
Right.
But at the same time, we're talking about that, and the CEO of Spotify is saying, put shit out all the time, never stop, never stop, never stop. So it's a scary situation in that sense.
Right. And I feel what you said too is the trend is singles come out and you do have to, like, the minute one starts to fade, the next one comes in, and now bands are finding that, well, maybe I'll just, after 4 of them come out, I can make an album out of them or something. Although there's more, I see more EPs out and things of that nature.
Well, that's because you're getting rewarded. If I put a single out on Spotify as an independent artist, it's going to be pushed. Any song that I put out on the day of the album is not going to be pushed.
Right.
The way the single was. And I know that, not because some guy told me or because some label, blah, 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 blah. I don't really give a shit. It's because I fucking looked at the Spotify numbers and I can see that, like, I did it all myself, so I know that it's going to do that. So what am I going to do as an artist? I'm going to put out a single and another single, because even if I have an album done, I have to trickle it out because I'm being punished for putting the album out as a whole.
Yeah. How dare you?
It's like, Well, that's kind of a thing. It's like a byproduct. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? That's why you're seeing it happen. And it's like, of course, like who wants, you know, their album to come out like in that way? It's not really a preferable thing.
Mhm.
But at the same time, like preference is for people who have enough money to do what they want. And,
Mhm.
you know, I have some freedom to do what I want as far as creatively, but I feel like, I know it sucks to say, but it's like money is freedom in this world that we live in. And unfortunately, it's like, would I like to just make albums and put out the albums with all the stuff done? Yeah. Like, but I can't
Right.
because it's just not, doesn't work. It doesn't work as well as the other way.
Mhm.
And everything is kind of like a hustle, you know? It's like, that's the thing about the way things are, at least in my perspective. You know, everyone's got their own perspective, but mine's just from like, you know, I'm like a dude who, I put out music, we do whatever we can, we make the best video that we can with whoever we can, try to make sure everything is meaningful, pitch the playlists ourselves, do all these things. We get what we get. Like we got New Noise from Eric Reality, which was cool. Like, but at the same time, it's not like there's some greater machine to take it over, to push it further,
Mhm.
which pretty much like most people, I feel like, either have a greater machine or like if they have as many plays as we do, their social media is much bigger. But we're this weird spot where it's like we're not the biggest social media people. Like the amount of people that listen to us a month versus the amount of followers we have is like crazy difference.
Mhm.
Like you know, we're getting like, I don't know, something like 40, 50,000 listens a day, but we only have like, that's like streams per day, but we only have like 10, 12,000 Instagram followers. It's not like every post we make gets thousands of likes, but that's all currency in today's world.
Mhm.
Like if you're gonna get someone to play ball with you or do something with you, like that's all currency. But at the same time, like I can't access all those people who listen to my music on Spotify. I can't email them all
Yeah,
unless I'm
if
on
they're on
Spotify.
it, they'll see it, but you can't get the word out
No, I
necessarily.
can't email them
Right.
unless I'm part of their special program, which is only available if you are buddy with them and from a big label, which is a program where they'll like announce that you have a song out and send an email out to everybody, not just your earliest radar, and push your song further. And then they have this marquee thing. All these things that I know from the business side of it. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? Like, but it's like you just kind of, you do what you can afford to do. So it's like I wish I could take the high road and just do like the cool shit that I would have done when I was like 14, you know?
Yeah.
Like not played any of the games and like not send out a bunch of cold emails being like, hey, you want to put us in your TV show or our song or whatever. But like these are things that you kind of have to do as an independent artist. And that's why, that's the non-alluring part of being independent, I feel like, is like all that legwork.
It's still a
Like
thing.
it's still a thing. It's still a
Mhm.
thing. Except for now you don't have like a fucking name that everybody knows that they're really comfortable with on your email. You know? Like that little logo that says Schlick Mick, whatever it is you're from. That it's crazy how that changed. You know, one
Yeah.
blue check mark change your whole life. like,
Yeah, that is true.
think
I
about
didn't
it.
realize it until somebody pointed that out, that that's what that meant, and I was like, oh, that makes you legit to, because you fit this bubble of this and that, but
Well, yeah, but it's just really funny because it's like these are all the things that the modern musician has to like deal with,
yeah.
whereas like the fantasy of music prior was like that all of those things that regular people like are coveting after, you're supposed to like not even care about because you
Mhm.
created this alternate universe for yourself. But since the whole point of everybody's existence is to like have the social media clout, because every single person, it's their own movie, like we were saying.
Mhm.
It's almost like inescapable. Like you kind of have to participate. You kind of can't. Well, you can not participate, but you got to be ready for whatever repercussions that kind of comes with.
Yeah.
You know?
Because so I guess connecting to the song, I know that American Reality was definitely not in your a year ago. That wasn't really the reality. Has anything come out since? Because I'm trying to think what we had before that. I stumbled on American Reality, going to your point of, I wasn't
Yeah.
flagged. I didn't get an email saying here's the latest.
Yeah.
But also like I followed those who I've either seen, like, whatever. So it was,
Yeah.
on me. But what was in the where did American Reality come to start in this kind of quarantine world? That because you have the video, you have props to Chicago were mentioned. Great, there we go. I got our news. And it was like cool on that, unfortunately, but
Yeah.
was that already there and you had to change it around, or it just like you guys just put it like we got to say something, we got to do something about this, or is it kind of like
it was part of it was there because all the stuff I was telling you about music business and doing all the stuff I was talking about, like I was dealing with, and I do so much stuff like on my own, and it's the feeling of like kind of being mad, not only with, because if you look at American Reality real quick, yes, it's about that specific situation, right? But also it's about the fact that like if you're not a winner in America, you don't fucking matter on the whole scheme of the world. Like you either win or you lose, and that's kind of the way that our society treats you. And if you are not the newest best thing, no one cares about you. And even now, it's so sad, but it's like, even now, like you have to constantly put pressure on to be like, hey, remember that fucked up thing that happened? That's not like over. Like some other kid, Jacob, just got fucking paralyzed by a cop, got shot 6 times in the back. So it's like you're talking about these things going on forever, and just the whole feeling that like capitalism isn't real. The whole dream of it isn't a plausible thing that works for everyone. The whole concept that like you're supposed to feel inadequate about yourself. It just makes you feel like the government doesn't care about you. People don't care about you. Like people around you might care about you. I understand that. But as a citizen of America, are you really cared about? Like as a citizen of the world, are you really cared about? Like that isn't the way that it feels. So I kind of had this song where I had part of it and I was looking for how to really finish it and how to make it a song. And when all that stuff started happening and I was going to the protests and I was still writing the song, I started singing the lyrics to myself, and I was like, well, you know what? When you juxtapose these lyrics against that situation, you're like, okay, well, why are people breaking in to the Target and burning it down? Why do people want to feel the need to destroy things to have changes made? Why are people angry on both sides of it? You know what I mean? Why? Like the reason why all these things are happening is because as people, we don't feel like we matter in any kind of way. Like we are so disillusioned as human beings because like, yeah, it's great that we can go buy a cheeseburger for $1.50, but that's not real. Like that we can only buy a cheeseburger because the government's paying farmers money to make sure that we could pretend to be the richest country in the world with the best stuff. Why? You get what I mean? Like these are all things to keep us poor people feeling like we're not complete losers in our lives. Like we can go to the mall and buy a pair of sandals for $15. How could you possibly mine things out of the earth, put it all together, and make it that cheap if you think about how you'd actually have to do it? None of those things can exist without the people in power being in power, and there has to be ones at the bottom. So I feel like the gap is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And that situation with the whole movement that's happening, like Black Lives Matter and that movement is about more than just the justice for the people who have been killed. And it's more than just police brutality. And it's more than just that. It's about the fact that it's like, why do we live in a world where basically you struggle just to get by, and that's supposed to be enough for you to think you live in the best country in the entire world? Why is that the case? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why, let's take universal basic income. Okay? Why is universal basic income and socialism and all this stuff so fucking terrifying to all of us as people? Why is that this crazy thing? It's because we relate that to being like, there'll be no music and there'll be no this, there'll be no that. But it's like, okay, so FDR decided to make the New Deal, and he was like, hey, we just had the Great Depression. There's a lot of 65-year-old and plus, people out there. And it turns out there's just too many hobos. There's too many people with sticks with sacks on the back. We're going to do this new thing. It's called Social Security. That's just UBI for people who are old. So Social Security, people who were 65 when that was passed, they didn't pay into it. They were just given it because you know where they were? On the street. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I think our country needs to change, because it sucks that you can work 40 hours a week and you make only enough money to pay for your apartment, to pay for your food, maybe have a little bit of fun, and that's it. And then you have no money saved because you can only make enough money to sustain. Mm-hmm. And it's like, why can't we live in a society where all of those things are pretty much taken care of for the most part? And if you want better stuff, you can work your way up to it. That's what I think is possible. Like, I think it's possible to have something where, like, because one, jobs are going to disappear. Like, they're not going to be like, hey, McDonald's is anti-robot now because we just love people. Like, that's not going to happen. They're going to have the second they get to have no people, they're going to have no people.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
So that's still more pushing forward.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, that's technology. What are you going to do?
Right.
Tell technology to chill out? Like, we all love that. We all love the fact that here's the thing. We love the world becoming this amazing place, but we hate thinking about what that actually means for us. So it's like, oh, wait, you made a computer that can do exactly what all these humans are doing right now? Mm-hmm. Shit. You know what I mean? But at the same time, what are you going to do? You're going to euthanize all those people, or are you going to give them money to not be bad? Because if you don't give them any money, they're going to be bad. Mm-hmm. Because people being bad is the result of the government not being good. Not, they just have this need to be bad. Because for every criminal that's out there, that's just like, I just want to steal stuff, there's got to be 99 for every one that are like that are just circumstantially fucking themselves and just, they don't know what to do, so they just go do this. Whether it's drugs or this or that, it's like, if they got a check, they probably wouldn't do that. Like, it's a very small fraction of people who would be like, oh man, I'm going to just be super bad now, and I'm going to be like Batman level crime boss. That's my goal. Like, how many people are like that? I don't think it's like that, but that's kind of that's literally what you're being sold. Like, you're seeing at the RNC convention, like, they're talking about it like the socialists are coming and they have anarchist guns. They're going to kill your kids. Like, that's kind of the vibe that they're giving you.
The
fear.
What I mean? Yeah.
The fear. But when I'm saying, like, the whole wide world doesn't care about me, doesn't care about me these days, all my friends don't care about me, don't care about me these days, what I'm really saying is, like, as a citizen, no one gives a shit about me. Like, and that's true for anybody who didn't reach a certain level of income. Because if you didn't reach that level of income, you don't have power to say what you want to say and be heard or whatever. And it's like, even more in the case of people of color, and even more of the case of all kinds of minorities, because it's like, not only does the whole world not give a shit about me, they think they can get away with treating me even worse than regular people with no money are treated. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
so
And they're looking at these protests and everything too, where, you know, you have to find your other outlets in order to get the full story, because they're making out, well, we went in and took care of that raid because this is, you know, they're putting a story to the thing that it wasn't even about, and then trying to just back up that story by saying, well, because it's like that definition we said about labels, you know, labels in the sense of genres, you know, saying, if you say the word socialist, therefore you're this. So if you say you're at this protest and you're that, therefore you're the bad person, or something of that nature, where they're putting their own narrative into it and just sticking with it. And it kind of connects to what we were saying with just the music industry, because then no one's going to want to look into it. They're like, no, I don't like it because, you know, it's just bad. So and then I'm not going to talk about it.
Yeah.
Like
Or
politics in the music industry almost seem very similar.
Well, because everyone's like, oh, I'm gonna say like a real broad thing, or just post just a black square, and that's what I'm gonna do. And you know, and it's like, I want to see what the back of your green room was like when you and the boys were back there talking. Because I've been in some green rooms and I've heard people talk, and I don't think it would line up exactly with what you're acting like. You know what I mean? And like for my whole career, like I was always the person like who, you know, people were like kind of, you know, like I'm Moroccan Israeli. Like my dad is very Arabic looking. He's Jewish, but his features and everything. So my experience with all of that stuff was like a very big deal. And I grew up around a lot of different mixed races of people. And like most of the people that I met in the music industry did not. Like my experience with the music industry is very white, because most people that I experienced that were in the alt world were white. And there was a couple people who weren't that you'd experience, but culturally, like everything was numbed down to be white. You know what I mean? Like, even if you weren't, like, even if you're like a Spanish kid who played the music or something, I just noticed that, like, that Spanish part wasn't like, you know, it's like, that wasn't the part that you, like, experienced, because that wasn't, like, didn't fit with the thing. It wasn't even, it was subconscious. The same way as when I was young, I didn't want to tell people, I didn't want people to hear my dad on the phone or talk or anything, because he had such an accent that I felt. Now I think about it and I'm disgusted, you know what I mean? But I was really embarrassed of that. And it's like, why? Oh, because it wasn't American. So it was lower than. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Same kind of thing. And I remember one time I was in the Midwest and I went to go get food somewhere, and like I tried to order, and this guy was just being a real dick and like didn't want to take my order. And then these guys, like a whole like racist stare down weird fucking thing. And it was just weird. And like he saw my card and he said the last name. He's like, Asraf, blah, 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 blah. And I come back to the green room and like about to eat my burger and shit. And I was like telling a story. And then I remember this person, they will go unnamed, but they're very indie rock, fucking actually very, very, very much someone who talked on stage about things such as that, and non-binary rights and all these things. And even though she was like this particular person was just like a straight person, or at least they were in like a heterosexual relationship, just seemed like a regular rich girl, to be honest with you, who fucking went into music and did pretty good, and now she's whatever. But I remember I was talking and she's like, well, don't you think that maybe, I don't know, like we got like Obama was president stuff, and like, don't you think that maybe like racism is like a thing of the past? And I was like, maybe. So you're telling me right now that you're pretty sure that, you know, there's not a person screaming the N-word at somebody right now, treating them like a fucking piece of shit?
And not only
she's
that,
like, no, I'm just saying, like, you're probably just sensitive because like of your experiences in your past, and like, you know, it's probably like there's probably like no racism anymore, and like that's not a thing. And fast forward to Donald Trump getting elected, and this person's selling Mustard's selling patches that
Uh-huh.
are pretty much anti-racism patches.
And in your situation was not like she instantly put racism as just a black thing. Like what you experience is not racism,
Yeah.
apparently, because
Yeah.
okay. And that wasn't Chicago, right? You said Midwest. That wouldn't be a
Well,
Chicago thing.
it wasn't Chicago.
Good.
But it's funny because, it wasn't even just about like, I think she truly thought that that was a thing of the past, because if there was a black president,
Mm-hmm.
like that would, like, she just thought that that actually meant, she probably thought that the whole bubble, like her bubble of friends, she probably was so sheltered that she thought the whole world probably was just an extension of that bubble. You
Yeah.
know, because I feel like me, like I didn't graduate from high school, go on tour, become successful, and then end up where I am at my age now. So it's like I worked at Lawn Doctor, I worked at Dunkin' Donuts, I worked at Old Navy, I worked at Macy's, I worked as a garbage man. I worked all these jobs that do this thing to you where you're like, oh, this is actually how the world is outside of the people that I'm friends with, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not surrounded by a bunch of people that are just like me. I'm surrounded by a bunch of people that I don't even like some of these people's thoughts. But it's like you see the world in a way where you're like, no, the world is this crazy chaotic place where it's full of all kinds of people that think all kinds of good things and bad things. And it's one of those things where you're like, when you see somebody who could say a statement like that, we're like, oh, I think that's like a thing of the past. You're like, wow, you're lucky. Like, you're really lucky because you get to be in this sensitive world where like I don't know how bad you've ever, I don't know how much of garbage you've ever been treated your whole life. Like, I don't know what your most scarring put down moment as like an employee,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean, was, and doing those other jobs that makes you see like I know what it's like to have somebody think I'm Spanish when I'm weed whacking the dog shit from their lawn. You know what I mean?
Right.
When I was like in my 20s, and the way they treated me was like subhuman. Like but I didn't even notice, to be honest with you, because
Mm-hmm.
it was just like whatever. Like, I'm more concerned about the fact I'm depressed that I'm a fucking landscaper and not an artist. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not even thinking about this person, but it's interesting because you kind of get this experience with life where you're like, oh, that's what I'd be like. And the whole time you're doing all these terrible jobs, you don't want to do them because like you're like, I want to be an artist. Yeah, that's a dream.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you don't, like right now, like I make music and the only work I do is like involved with other bands. So I'm never really never really in that regular world of other jobs.
Mm-hmm.
But just going through the gauntlet of doing that, like it did teach me certain things. And even probably writing songs, I feel like there's a reason why my lyrics are more like, I feel like I do get like blue collar dads that are like my lyrics the same way as like a goth girl. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think there's probably a reason why there's a weird crossover sometimes like that. And it's because I think there's a certain like hardworking regular guy aspect to me as a person where it's like, yes, I'm like artsy person, but when I'm stage talking and stuff, I'm very like regular pork roll and cheese New Jersey human that like, because I kind of had to grow up that way. Like one of my other jobs was I worked for the boardwalk with my brother. We had a henna tattoo shop, and all I did was my whole job was to be a barker. I was a guy who was like, we put the ooh and tattoo for you. Come get your henna tattoos. And like, I would have to call people over to like, think about how demeaning that job is.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a demeaning job that for you to be like, well, this isn't even demeaning. This is just how you make money. Like
Mm-hmm.
to do that, that's why when I started making music, I was like, I don't want to do anything that I don't really believe in because I've already like in real life had these jobs where it was demeaning. Like
Mm-hmm.
if I don't have to, I'm really, which probably was not to my benefit sometimes, but it's like all of those things like molded me to be this weird artist, because it's like the heckling of the boardwalk, all those things, like that was like talking to customers, doing this, that was all, going on stage was easy. Because it was like, wait, I could be on stage and y'all are going to look at me like I'm not a piece of shit. So I'm already starting off like in control.
You're here to see me?
Yeah. Or even if they're not there to see you. And it's another band, it's like from doing all these jobs, I know the trick is that like the customer is more nervous than the salesman. Like it's very rare that a person going to buy a car or something is like confident. Like they try to act that way, right? But really, like, you know, that's why like a salesman like touches your shoulder and they do all that weird, that power shit. But it's like on stage, it was like, it's all those things that like weren't important to me before, and then all of a sudden I was like, it was almost natural. It was easy to do those things, like not easy to play, but easy to be not uncomfortable, because my whole life was uncomfortable. So
was music always, did that just then pop in? Like I'm trying to look back at what we have in our library, and I was like, I wonder what did a song just come in your head, and you're just like, how did the band, because Brick and Mortar is just in itself a very clever, I'm almost seeing now this connection to, you know, what Brick and Mortar means in the world versus your band. When did the music, going from those jobs to the band, how did that just happen? You're like, well, I want to do this, I'm just going to be this. And then,
well,
do you remember like your first song?
Yeah. Well, in the beginning, when I was 14 or 15, as a person, I was very like extremist person, I guess you'd say. Like, I didn't give a shit about like being cool or fucking clothes or any of that shit, which again, not to my benefit. But my dad was a con man and diamond smuggler and all this stuff, and I saw like a lot of problems with money. Like I saw a lot of just people who cared about money and success, and they cared about all these things, like always fucked themselves. So I began to hate that so much, and I hated money, and I was anti-capitalist and all this shit. And like, but also for me, my run was different. Like when 9/11 happened to everybody else, it had no personal effect on their life unless it was like someone died in it or whatever. You know what I mean? Like something like that, a very sad thing, like with some people in New Jersey that I knew, right? But it wasn't like their fathers weren't turned into like bad guys. But like my dad got lumped in with the Patriot Act with all the terrorists. Like, because he worked with this diamond smuggling, and basically he was included with all these people. So my whole view on money and society and the country and the world and all that shit was like very different than everyone else I was friends with. So I had no expectations. I had no goals. I didn't even know how long I would be on earth. I was very much like, and I didn't have parents around. I didn't have like, you know, like by the time I was like 19, like I was already like living in my car and shit, and like living with a friend and stuff like that. And like, there's 6 of us, it was a big family. Like, so my whole thing was I had no expectation. I had no parent telling me I would be something. I had no special teacher that saw something special in me that encouraged me to care. Nobody cared, so I didn't care. And I had no expectation of anything. I just got fucked up all day, did whatever I was going to do. But I always played music because I loved playing music. So I played the bass, and that was it. Only the bass. Played with John all the time, who was my drummer still. And we would do like once a week at this place, a Java joint. I didn't know what touring was. I didn't know what a chord was. I didn't know what a fucking chorus was. I didn't know any of that.
He was always a drummer?
Always a drummer.
Okay.
So he's a drummer, and like we both learned other things
to
be able to do them to an extent. But like John is a drummer. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Like, so in this whole thing, I'm like, you know, playing with John from like probably 15 to like years and years and years. And then I start to notice like, you know, John's going out and like where I'm just playing bass and that's it. Like John's got a regular family who cares about him. So they're like, you gotta go make money, go do cover band, go play with other people, blah, blah, blah. And I remember like with me, I was like, fuck, like this is the most structure I've had in my life. Like playing every week at the Java joint was like the most structure I had in my whole fucking life.
Yeah.
So I remember John was jamming with this other guy who was an amazing singer, right? Very, very talented. I was like, shit, we've been doing this for a long time, and now the singer guy, John's gonna play with him, and I remember I tried to play in the band as bass, but like the guy clearly did not like my personality, so he was a nice guy. He actually ended up dating my sister. I love the guy. It's just too much in one room. You know what I mean?
Did he end up going into music or?
For a while,
okay.
But nothing that's what's funny about it. Cause to me, he was like the mecca of singers. Wow. What an amazing singer.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, I was like, I better learn how to sing or like John's not gonna be my drummer anymore. And he was like the best drummer in town kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And I remember like, that's when I started trying to figure out how to sing. And what's funny is like, I made these songs and it was like more like me writing it with this other guy and John and singing, but I didn't like it. I was like, I think this kind of sucks. And I don't think we need all this shit. Like, I don't think we need a guitar solo here. I don't think we need this thing. I don't think this needs to happen. I don't think that needs to happen. But it wasn't stuff I was telling them because that was the first time I'd ever recorded. So I just did it. You know what I mean? Like it was an experience. And then I'm like, well, what if and this was when like John was like making money with a cover band. So I was kind of like more on my own, but John was very much in my life. But at the same time, like it wasn't like get in a room and jam kind of a thing. It was more like, cause he didn't know I was going to sing or anything like that. You know, I was just like, I have to become a singer so I could like keep jamming with my friend. That was like the beginning initial thing. There was no, I'm going to become a singer so I can become famous. It wasn't that. It was like, oh, I got to sing or like, something to jam with me. And then I remember, you know, I started doing it. The thing with the other guitar player fizzled out. And I was like, listen, John, I'm just going to like try to like, I'm going to make a bunch of demos and we'll go into the studio with this guy and let's just like flush him out and make him songs. And I'll just fake being a singer. So I wrote like all the songs on 7 Years in the Mystic Room, like our first EP, and all like the hearts of what the songs are, like the, you know, like the initial progression and melody and lyrics, and then like went to the studio and kind of made them actual songs. So the way it really happened was like, that wasn't until I was like 24 years old. So as people go, 24 years old in the music business, and you've never done a thing in your life, it's like being 8,000 years old. You know, as far as like,
it's like grandpa trying to get a Twitter account.
Yeah, I had no expectation. It wasn't like I still was anti-capitalist, still very mad at the world, still very mad at society, don't want to be a part of it. You know, like I didn't even go shopping for clothes. Like all the clothes I ever wore were just shit people left at wherever I was sleeping. You know what I mean? Like I worked my way up though. Like I remember like I was really proud when I went from like living in I worked at Red Lobster and I lived in my friend's like parents' spare room. And then like I moved up from there to like this guy was tripping on mushrooms one night. I was at a party and he was like, hey man, I hate my roommates. Do you want to move in my room? I hate it. And then I moved in his room the next day. And I remember it was like this dingy ass room in the middle of the floor looked like an air mattress like was melted or something. It was like a bunch of ash in the middle. It was really weird. And I was like, whatever, $300 a month, I'm taking it. I remember like working my way up, you know what I mean?
And is this all New Jersey still?
All New Jersey.
All New Jersey, okay.
So, you know, at the same time as these things are happening in my life, you know, John's life is parallel where he's like totally different. Like he's got like, you know, a fucking car and a family, a fucking nice mom and dad. And you know what I mean? Like he's doing these things. So we had no expectation. It wasn't like, I didn't know I would get at it. I didn't know I'd ever even go on tour or do this or do that. And then I remember I made 7 Years of Mystic Room, started playing like local shows. And my goal was to play Lanes, which was like a really cool venue in New Jersey that was like very DIY. And I played there, and then people like were like, "Oh, this is like kind of good. You're kind of good. Like you should keep doing this." And I was like, "Wow!" The first time in my life where I was like, "Wow, like, am I actually good at something? Like, could I do this?" And I remember the feeling of actually believing in myself for the first time, which was really crazy. But I was already like 24, so I was very, very cynical because I didn't have the bright-eyed. You know, one, I knew tons of people who were criminals, and I knew tons of people from my dad and stuff, and tons of people who were like businessmen and all that. And I knew how like people who got things done thought, and I really didn't like that.
And how to get it done.
Yeah. So I didn't like music business guys and that kind of stuff. And, you know, but either way, I did that EP, and then it got a lot of buzz, and then people in Philly, specifically people who are at Drexel, really, really started to like us for that EP. And then they kind of pushed for us to get on a split 7-inch for Motion City soundtrack. And that was our first like break, I guess, where we were like attached to something remotely known. And then that did okay. And then we got our first like actual record deal. And then it kind of tumbled for there where we got like more popular from the record label, and then we got dropped, and then became even more popular after we were dropped. And then now it's like I'm trying to figure out what to do because, you know, basically the timeline is like we got signed around like 2013, 2014. It took forever to actually, you know, got some stuff out. They were supposed to put a whole record out. They didn't. We got dropped. It took like almost 2 years to get our stuff back. And then we like released the other stuff that we got back. And then at that point, you know, everyone's telling me that they're going to get me another deal and all this stuff. And I can be patient. So I'm wasting more time on not putting shit out and like waiting even longer. And then I ended up taking the record that I never got to go anywhere because every label said, go fuck yourself, and put it out myself. And then did pretty good. And then, you know, basically trying to figure out, all right, well, what do I want to do? Like, do I want to just keep putting out records myself, or, you know, do I want to play?
Record, what's that? Because Meta is your latest.
Meta is our latest, which took forever to like
get out
because it was done, and then people were claiming they wanted to put it out, but they never pulled the trigger. So I waited for like no reason, and then by that time, like I didn't have like the funds I would have had if I had just struck while the iron was hot. So it was like, you know, those are things you don't think about as a band, you know. But like I said, I never thought I was going to be in a band. I never sang in front of the mirror. I never filmed myself singing. I never gave a shit. I never bought a t-shirt at a store until I was old. Like, I was a fucking maniac.
It's funny that you hear the cliche of like, you were, as you and John, like you said, parallel, like he seemed to go the normal route of where you were the flip side, where you're living this uncertain teenage life, 20s. And not saying that by 27 you had it together, but you always hear like this like quarter life crisis that everyone has at that point of like, where am I? What am I doing? You actually said at 24, everything was, you had a routine, you had things. So it's great to hear that flip side, that it's not typical for everyone to have that weird quarter life crisis. You actually had a light at the end of the tunnel, very small light.
Well, I definitely had a light. I wish that I had considered that I was capable of this before.
Right.
So I didn't have to learn so many things so much later. Because it's just like so much work sometimes.
Do you think are you happy with your singing?
I mean, I'm happy with I'm happy with the stuff I make up,
Uh-huh.
and
You have a
I'm
very
happy.
distinct sound, so that's why I was wondering. Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have guessed that you had the lack of confidence in doing it. But were you comparing it to that guy, your sister's ex-boyfriend?
No, because
Okay.
like here's the thing that was really weird. Like I knew he was a really good singer, and like I had learned music because I was walking home one day. Well, first I played guitar when I was young, but then we became poor and I had to sell my guitar when I was like 10 or something. But I played like a little bit. Like I played
Mm-hmm.
Wild Thing once. Like I learned that guitar. So I remember John, we were walking home from school, and like basically I became friends with John when we were young because he was so talented. I was like, wow, this is the most talented person I've ever seen. It was like very much
And
shameless about that.
how old were you then? Like 14, 13?
I became 14 because John did a drum solo in 8th grade
Oh.
where it was an 8th grade talent show and everybody was in the cafeteria and he ripped this drum solo and like crushed it. And it basically just changed the whole course of his high school existence because everybody was like nice to him after that, you know, because he was like the best drummer in school. That was like the feeling, right? And that was when I was like, wow, this is a person where like, I just want to be around this person and I want to know what a talented person is like, you know, because I had never known a really talented person before. And then he revealed that there's really no trick to it.
Of course.
That you just do it all the time. But I remember he told me, oh, you should go play the bass. And it's like, I went to go play the bass and this teacher taught me all these like jazz standards and like theory stuff, but I didn't learn like cover songs or anything like that. And I never listened to music really at all. And I just started writing songs without really being a fan of other songs.
So you have nothing to model it after.
Yes.
The structure.
Nothing to model the structure after. And there was no comparison to be like, oh, I'm not singing the way that my favorite singer Robert Plant does because I couldn't recall in my head exactly what he might do because for me it was at the time like I listen to a lot more music now, but at the time it was like just a band. Like I wasn't into this or into that. I didn't covet anyone. I wouldn't care if I met a famous guitar player. Like didn't matter to me because I was all about how do I make meaning out of my own life. It was about me leaving some kind of like I didn't want to die and then mean nothing. Like because and you go back to American reality, it's like nobody cares about me. I know they're lucky to have what I got, but I'm also lucky because of what I'm not. Feeling like you're worth nothing. That I've felt that feeling for a very, very long time. And not just because I'm emo about it, but because there were times in my life where a person made it clear that I was not a winner, you know. And when you're dealing with life and work and stuff like that, and not like your family and people who have to be nice to you, but when life beats you down, you know what I mean? Or like, I went to go visit my father one time, and he was in jail. Like he got away when I was 10, but then he like went to Israel to go see his dying mom because he like loved his mother. He was like a gangster guy, loves his mom. So he gets caught, brought back to America. They're interrogating him for like, I don't know, like a year or something. So he's in like New York in this like federal penitentiary being held there until they deport him. Right. So like, I remember wanting to go visit him. And this is when I made instrumental music and I didn't sing yet. And I remember we were called The Black Rhythm, and it was me and John. And I remember I made this CD and this cheesy photoshopped like, you know, cover where I made it look like an imprint and I made it like Rasta colored because we were potheads. So I made like, you know, I was like very proud to show my father this CD. And I go to jail and I'm like sitting in the prison waiting to go in and see him. And I get up to the lady, and the lady, you know, she has like the gloves on and stuff, and she takes my shit and she looks at me and she throws it in the garbage. She's like, no CDs allowed in jail. And I was like, okay. It was already weird because I was like going to, I never had been, that was the first time I was ever going to go see my dad, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now my dad's like, he's not in jail anymore. He's like in Israel now. He lives in Israel. But either way, that was a thing where like, you can't teach somebody that. You can't show somebody how that feels to be in society, to be like, wow, I know exactly, not exactly, I know a tiny fraction of what somebody feels who actually has their father or mother in jail for their whole life, or even a large portion of it, because I was treated like I wasn't even a person. And that one act was such a symbolic thing to me. You know what I mean? But, you know, getting back to the whole story of it all of these things, it was like, I didn't have any expectation. I didn't ever see myself being in a popular band or anything like that. So when we started getting popular, I was not prepared for that. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know. I also was like not compromising. Like I remember they were like, Lord is huge. You need to top line over that Lord song. I was like, I didn't fucking take a record deal and owe you guys fucking more money than I've ever seen in my life so I could be in a cover band. Could have done that. And I was like, I said that shit to them. Like in the fucking thing. And I was like, now I'm like, that's crazy. You know what I mean? Like, but where I came from, that wasn't talking crazy. That was how people
communicated and was said.
Yeah, because you had to be tough to like, you know, it's kind of like, you ever see that show Shameless? Kind of like that, where it's like, you know, that's the whole thing. So either way, where this all kind of culminates is like, really, there was no like clear path to any of this. It was all learned in a very messy ass way with a lot of time wasted. You know what I mean? Because I also didn't have like specific goals for myself where like, I wasn't like, by the time I'm this age, I have to be functionally money wise or anything like that. It was just like, I just kind of follow what I wanted to do and was okay with being very poor for a long time. And then those opportunities, like getting the Drexel thing, and then, you know, getting the deal with Photo Finish. And then like, you know, from there, it was like, I was like, once I got signed to Photo Finish and I started playing actual radio festivals and all these things, I was like, okay, so I guess I can really be this person. So I have to learn about it and I have to know what I'm doing. And I have to know a lot more. And that's where like, when we got dropped, and then I pretty much became like my own everything and became the whole business side of it myself. And that's kind of where it's been since that. And then like with Train and all those songs, that was all like campaigns we did, you know? But now it's like the paradigm of the business is so different than it was when we were first signed. Like even in like 2013, that was like pre many things. Like I remember when Spotify was like a invite only.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
how much of John is involved in current situation? Like
right
how much
now,
do you see each other? And
well, we see each other like maybe once or twice a week, and we're writing stuff together. But it's pretty similar to what it was back in the day, because like I just described to you, like I marketed it like it was two guys in a room all the time. But the reality of it was, John was like a regular person who was like a good boyfriend and a good this and a good that. And like, I was the manic person being like, here's 20 pound, man. Here's 20 pound. I was living on my little sister and brother's Seaside Heights. I'm living on their couch. They have a busted guitar in the corner, and that's how I wrote 20 pound. And I remember I was like living, and they were doing the henna tattoo shop before me, and they had their own rooms, and I was living on the couch, and they were my younger brother and sister. I was on their couch. So it was like, that was my life, like the poetic, ridiculous, like, and it wasn't like I chose that. It just, that's kind of how it happened.
Yeah.
So it was always kind of a thing where like I would do the chorus of stuff and then I would bring it together with John to like polish it and be like, all right, like here's the kind of beat I think we should do. What do you think we should do, John? Do you have anything to outdo this beat? Because I was always very like drum conscious and rhythm conscious. Like I'm a big fan of hip hop and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually what I did listen to when I was young, but I wasn't like an avid music person, but I love the beats. So it was very much almost like a singer-songwriter, but then I would never finish it without John.
Mm-hmm.
So right now it's like, that's kind of what it is too, but it's just a bit harder because now he's got a whole family and kids and all that shit. And
ruins everything.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
How dare he?
But at the same time, it's just hard because it's like, the thing about that is like, you need to like make money and you need to do all these things that, you know, and it's going to differentiate your time, but also like John's a certain kind of guy. He's like an amazing musician and he's a very reactive guy, but he's not like, stay up till 3 a.m. and come up with some wild idea and go down a rabbit hole kind of guy, because that's not what makes a great drummer, because drummers are reactive. You know what I mean? Like there's something there about that. You know what I mean?
Are you familiar with the band The Hana?
Yeah.
So the funny thing on our side with them is I've met them probably a year and a half ago, and there's 4 of them. So it seems like every time I talk to them, I get somebody. I haven't yet to get the lead singer, but I kind of like that I got the bass player the first time, and now I got the drummer the second time. And kind of what you just said is how those 2 individuals are part of this band. It's something that I learned about with bands is you're not all just in a room shooting the shit. It's people like you, people like John, and so it was I'm glad I got to see that, because I was just always talking to the lyricist or something like that.
Yeah. I was also very much like all of our first photo shoots and this and that, it was like I didn't want like the center spotlight thing. Like at first I didn't even want to like be seen. I just wanted it to be like artwork. Like I didn't want to do it.
Well, you have the hair, you could do the Sia thing. Just
now I can do that. I didn't before. But either way, like, you know, it was very much a thing where like I wanted it to be this thing where I wanted John to feel even more connected to it. So obviously I'm going to be like, let's both be the thing of it. But it is funny because people ask, it's like, as you get older, it just gets tough because you just don't have, if your partner does have kids in these things, it's just inevitable. They're going to need to, especially if they're not rich, because they're going to need to like watch them.
Right.
You know what I mean? But now it's like, I'll go over.
Is he still in New Jersey?
Yeah. So like, I'll go over John's and, you know, do stuff. And then as like little kids come home and then like, you know, the shit's over because you're obviously, you know, it's not that you can't do it with kids home. It's just that like, if your partner is going to be distracted all the time, you might as well just come another day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way it is now, which is like totally cool. Cause like the only thing I get burnt out on is like doing all the music stuff and then also doing all the business stuff is a bummer because you're like too disappointed that nothing's enough, you know?
And you don't have anybody else there to kind of validate you. How you said you have a girlfriend now?
Yeah.
Is she part of any of it?
Yeah, she definitely helps me out. She helps me out with like, you know, photo shoots and things like that, and just like tries to be supportive. But it's also hard because like being in the music business is very toxic and it's a very up and down emotional thing. So it's not the healthiest in a relationship to be, which is I guess why even a lot of aspects like the whole hustle of it, like I feel like one person in a band becomes that person. Like whether it's just the writing or it's the business too, it's like that hustle part of it is something where you can't really tell somebody or teach somebody to do that. They have to have the drive to do that, you know? So doing that, it's going to come with the fact that you emailed 100 people and got rejected
99 times. Yep.
And then you got an email back from one that went nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
So that gets to be old after a while. And that's where it gets tough. And it's like, I try not to put too much strain on my relationship, but it doesn't always work. It doesn't always work because I get like sad and have emotional outbursts and stuff, especially with this whole COVID thing, because it's made it double hard, like I was saying before. But
I was gonna say I took it as, because I started a relationship, not right in the beginning, but I felt like a lot of couples went through that make or break. Either because they just started to move in with each other, or now they're only relying on each other. So that either made relationships closer, or
yeah,
it's like going on that road trip.
yeah, exactly. But I mean, for me, I'm lucky because like it has been really, really awesome, and like she's been super supportive and stuff like that. But I just feel like being in a relationship with a person from a band is not a fun thing in some regards, because they're always self-centered, and it's like part of your job is to be self-centered. I mean, that's literally your whole, and it's, to separate yourself from music is hard. To be like, oh, well, like my music is being rejected, or I'm not getting this and I'm not getting that, so therefore I am being rejected.
Yeah, it's personal.
You don't make any separation.
Like even I was looking on, I go more to people's Facebooks nowadays because I feel like that's more personal than some of the websites. Yeah. And you simply state, we make music we care about and write lyrics that are close to our heart. Our band mind and hearts have told us to make the music we make. And we are just glad that you're listening. So it's complete validation that I can say it in the station sense, where my new hobby became web design, which I didn't mean to do. I was just playing around with our website, and that became like the new thing for me. Like, but I wanted to let people see it and look at it and go with it, and not let them know that it was my thing. They knew the station was, but I'm not saying that it's complete relation, but it's still like you take everything that is said harder than if you just work at a company. Like I do have a day job in the education field.
You wouldn't care if someone was like, right. I don't like that. You'd be like, okay.
Right. Like, oh, the building doesn't look good. Okay, sure. I'll let maintenance know. Where are you? So you're collaborating. You're obviously working. Is there anything that you're collaborating with others with? Because you said you're always music industry. People are always talking music, but like other groups and stuff that you're are you connecting more with people in the industry than you were before? Or is it just kind of business as usual for you?
I guess I'm trying to, but what I'm doing is, instead of like doing what I did in the past, which is like, that's why like I released American Reality. Like I have a couple other songs ready to go. I just don't have a music video or enough money to make the music videos I want to do happen. Mm-hmm. So it's like, right now I'm actually like, do I just put this shit out and just not give a shit? Or do I wait till I have a better opportunity? Which I don't think I'm going to wait. I'm not really sure. But it's like, that's what I'm trying to not do. It's not wait for perfect opportunities. Because it's like, that's something that I feel like I did do. Like once people told me that there was opportunities, and all of a sudden they're like, don't make a mistake, like kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I am trying to connect with more people and figure out like, okay, like, does anybody want to put these songs out with me in any kind of way, like whether it's distro or whatever. And also with writing new songs, it's like I'm reaching out to other artists that I know that are like producers and things, and trying to connect those dots to work with me as well.
Okay.
Like on American Rally, I worked with one guy that I never worked with before, who was in like a band from Jersey called The Stolen. They're like a indie band. Mm-hmm. And that was cool. And then like this other dude from town named Roshane Chops, who's like an amazing musician. There's a couple of songs where I had him kind of play on songs. And then one song with this guy who does bass for the Front Bottoms, named Eric.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I went over his house and did some stuff. Yeah, pretty much every song that I ever work on pretty much becomes a song, and then I put it out. Like, I feel like, I
That's
don't
good.
know. But yeah, I'm trying to expand outside of just it being me and John, only because we've been friends since we were 14 years old. So it's like, sometimes it's hard for John to be objective about me. Like, dude, can you really say that? Because you're my friend Brandon.
Right.
You know what I mean? But if you go to
and
someone else,
I don't feel like you have to. You don't have to prove to him anymore that you could sing and
yes,
be in
and
a
that
band
was the thing.
together.
Well,
So,
that was a thing, because he was a very talented drummer from the day, you know what I mean, since we were 14.
right.
So the dynamic was always that I had to, like, you know, because we didn't, people told us people told him I was good, and me I was good, like, years into it. But also just to try to write with other people, and it's still like John's writing with me, but it's like that other person, I'm trying to see, like, okay, here are all my, like, song seeds, whether on my iPhone or whatever, you know, and like when some guy goes, oh, here's what I want to work on, that one, it's like, okay, that might not be one that John would definitely want to work on.
Got it.
You know what I mean? The same way as if I go to another person, they might not like a song that any of the people would have worked on. So I'm trying to do more of that, but actually, like, I was proactive in it, but then, like, with the whole shutdown, it made it a lot harder to to try to get that done, you know?
Yeah.
But it's also weird. It's also weird because I don't know where I sit, you know what I mean? Like, we're not so popular where I have people, like, knocking down my door being like, I want to work with you. But we're not so unpopular that, like, we don't have listeners and stuff. It's very, like, a weird...
Right, because I was even going to say you and I have been in contact since that last show.
Yeah.
And I mean, it definitely did fuel me to try to get this interview in with you because of American reality. But it made me see what others are. Every single person I've been talking to is doing something different now. That norm of, like I said, here's your work. What's led to it? What it is, and then what's going to happen. That formula isn't there anymore. Now it's, I saw you in show. You said, and that's been consistent. Where even your answer to me was still kind of vague of what's coming up next. You know, like, you were in the moment completely. We were in the show. We were doing this. I think all I asked you to was, like, what date, where are you headed to next, and things like that.
Yeah.
But you take that out now, but you still had this, like, uncertainty of the next steps, where I've obviously then had those other bands that have those group of people who are able to tell them what they're going to be doing
what
next.
they're going to do.
Right. So I was very curious on your end, because of there was nothing that I saw obviously from you guys since, and I just wanted to originally just go there to say, hey, you said this, what's going on? But now you have American reality. So I figured, all right, you've been working on that, I'm sure. But again, it's very relevant to current world.
Yeah. Well, like, really, I was working on many things, and that was one of the things I was working on, and it kind of evolved to be what I wanted to put out. But at the same time as I'm working on it, still the whole idea of putting something out with another person is an alluring thing, where, like, now I have a person who, like, is working with me management wise and, like, trying to pitch me to people, but at the same time, I don't want to get caught in that cycle where now I'm waiting such a long time to put it out, and then nothing happens, and now all I did was waste my time.
And waited for
which
nothing.
Is like, and that's what really does happen. It's not like you're such a bad songwriter that you take, like, forever to write a song. It's that you make these things and you want to give them a justified release. And I feel like the bigger that you have done something before, you have this, like, idea that you want to, like, do that again.
Yeah.
Which is something I'm learning, like, I have to let go of. Like, I can't, like, want an awesome music video and this and that for every song just because that's what I was lucky enough to have in the past.
And it's almost not fair to the song, because if you're always putting out your best song, that obviously that's your opinion, but you know, I might hear something that I like more because that
Yeah.
fits more my taste. So I'm going to push that maybe more than whatever it may be. So that's
Yeah.
always kind of hard too. It's just like the Sophie's Choice. Like you're now picking your kids. Like, this is not my favorite child. This one.
Yes. Well, it's like, I think it's more just that like so much work goes into what all the songs you're doing that you're like, oh well, I want to give this release the best chance and the best promotion it can have and all this stuff. And then you go down a rabbit hole of like trying to find a label and all this shit. And it's like most people in the business, like they're either like have the label already or they're just not even fucking with that and they're just putting shit out.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm in this weird middle where it's like I go to just do that and then somebody is interested suddenly and then it falls through. But in that negotiation time, it's like that's why what I'm doing is.
Yeah, and I was going to say everything is different because you could, after American Reality, I'm sure you got a different response than you would when you had like the album come out. Now you're working, you know, whatever else is coming up. That must be very daunting to then put it out, because I was looking at the date, it was July 31st, that American Reality. So I was like, all right, I'm sure if you wrote it all out day by day of all the responses you got and everything, it's almost like a story in itself of what happens. So now the next thing's going to be completely different. But you're going to wonder like, wait, why am I not getting the same thing? Or maybe you're going to get more. So that, especially independently, that's got to be.
Well, also independently, you need to constantly be your own cheerleader and be excited every day to be a breakthrough artist who's going to change his life and make an impact on the world and all this shit. And like, you have to wake up and actually think that to yourself without anybody, you know, it's almost like you're in a movie and like, it's like, you know, you're an insane person because, well, you do. Because like other people, literally, they have people calling them going like, Jacob, I just had a meeting with Jerry over at blah, blah, blah. And there's a lot of, you know, you never know what could happen. And even though it might not turn into anything, that phone call was so much more important than that kid knows, because now he's excited for the whole day to make a new thing. And like when you're independent, you just got to be excited like that all the time, you know? Yeah. I gotta, you have anything else you want to ask me? I gotta start wrapping this up because.
Nope, I was letting you. This is what the show's all about. So.
Oh yeah.
I just got to edit it.
I just edited it. Well, I'm sure a lot of likes to cut out.
Right. Well, the video thing's new too. So the audio part is what gets chopped up. I'm still figuring out what to do. I have all these past interviews that I'm like, maybe I'll just post it as is, because it really is that raw stuff that I don't not air because of content. It's just fitting into a 2-hour show. And normally it's like, take a clip, play a song, take a clip, play a song. And I'm already like looking, you gave me enough where I can put in a lot of your stuff in between, even if it's not exactly relevant to, like, you didn't reference it, if that makes sense. So I like that. But then putting the whole video, I'm like, I don't have video background, so I'm still trying to figure that out. And when I was looking to air this next month, because this weekend we have so it's every Sunday from the 8. But the question would then be, I know you have a mind of what you want to send out, but I also do like to connect it to something. So is there, you don't have to say exact details, but do you think there could be a better time range next month to put it out to help promote?
What do you mean? Like, do I actually have something coming out?
Yeah, maybe.
No, I don't have something coming out. I have songs done, but it's like I didn't pull the trigger. Like I have nothing like on the books.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Not probably not until like maybe November or something.
November. Okay. But we can do this. Obviously you have this, you have a bunch of stuff. So we realize like it doesn't necessarily no longer connect to an album. Can we do really quick just some IDs?
Yeah.
We'll do one for American reality, and then we'll do a station one and a show one.
Okay, perfect.
Here, we'll do the hard one. The hard one's always the station one because it's the whole shebang with the tagline. But Brandon from Brick and Mortar, you're listening to Alt 360 playing all degrees of alternative.
Okay. This is Brandon out. This is Brandon Asraf from Brick and Mortar, and you're listening to Alt 360.
Playing all degrees of alternative.
Playing all degrees of alternative. This is Brandon Asraf from Brick and Mortar, and you're listening to Alt 360, playing all degrees of alternative.
Good. You didn't even have to write that down. Everyone writes it down. Now it gets simple. Brandon, Brick and Mortar, you're listening to Indie 101.
This is Brandon from Brick and Mortar, and you're listening to Indie 101.
And same thing, but it's we have a show nightly at 9, well, 8 or 10 your time, called Independence Hall, which we play all the indie artists. So it's the same thing. Brandon, Brick and Mortar, Independence Hall.
This is Brandon from Brick and Mortar, and you're listening to Independence Hall.
All right. And then American Reality. So we won't say the word latest because we're going to keep it on the track. So just it's Brandon from Brick and Mortar. Here is, it's a single, right? I mean,
yeah.
Maybe. But here's our single, American Reality, here on Alt 360.
Hey, I'm Brandon Asraf from Brick and, or you want to just?
Yeah. Hey, this is Brandon from Brick and Mortar. Here's our single. Yep.
Got you. And what am I tagging it with? Alt 360?
Yeah, just the Alt 360.
Okay. Hey, this is Brandon from Brick and Mortar, and you're listening to American Reality on Alt 360.
Social media, you said, is, so it's Brick and, not the plus, obviously.
Yeah. Which I hate so much. Well, it's just not possible. So it makes the whole internet like so much harder for us.
And it happens when I transfer music. So let's say I do it on one computer and then I transfer it over to the studio line because it's on a remote or whatever. Yeah. I always have to put just Brick Mortar, and then in the system I have to always
Could you imagine if the reason that we didn't have a ton of social media followers is because nobody knows we have one? Because like they didn't, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That's really making myself feel better. You know what I mean? Like, but either way.
And it's,
all right.
And I was gonna say your handle is, so the name, it's a common word, but you got your 12,000 followers. You got all your social medias on Facebook. You got your website, brmr.net.
Yeah, which is a dumb website name, but Brick and Mortar was taken by like some couple who travels or something.
And you can't do the plus. Remember back in the day when you had to Google something, or not Google, you had to search something, Jeeves, you used to put plus. But, well, Brandon, thank you so much for really dishing it out. You got it all out there. And
no problem, man. It was a good talk. I need some therapy today. You did great.
You're welcome. Anytime. We'll do it.
Thank you.
All right. Enjoy your time, and I'll let you know when this airs and stuff. And we'll be in touch.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Take care.
Later.
Bye.
Bye.